The Women in Law podcast is back. You know what? I've missed this podcast so much. I feel like this is one of those podcasts that really speaks to the issues pertaining to women and girls across the globe. And guess what? Just last year, we were spotlighted as one of the top 20 podcasts talking about women in law. It's so inspiring that we've been doing this, reaching over 14 countries so far. So this time, we're going to go bigger, we're going to go better, and definitely bring more guests your way. Today is just a brief introduction, and before I say anything, let me start by saying happy Valentine's Day. You would not guess what I'm going to talk about today, or you might be guessing what I'm talking about today, and it's just one thing, and it's just one word. It's consent. Yes, let's talk about consent, shall we? So there's this debate that has been going on for a while in many societies, especially in African societies, where we talk about a girl going on a date and a lot of money has been spent on that date, and there's an expectation, towards the end for some kind of, meet and greet in the apartment or the accommodation, and there's just something the guy is expecting. But what happens when the consent has not been given? Do we even understand what consent means? Do we know that consent is not just at the beginning? Consent is continuous. Consent should be from the beginning to the end of any sexual intercourse or relations. And this is a very dicey topic, but trust me, we're going to go into it. And of course, we're going to look at it from the lens of the law and what exactly should apply in every single situation. Come with me. Before I even start with anything, let me start by saying that the matter of consent and the topic of consent is really not for anyone below the age of 18. Yes, I said it. We shouldn't be having these conversations about children. Children do not have the mental, legal, or ethical responsibility or capability to give consent. So, anytime or any sexual relations that involves children is pedophilia and illegal. Yes, it's a crime. And in this part of the world, specifically in Nigeria, it is referred to as defilement. So let's go further into the topic of consent. So here are some things to remember about consent. Number one, it must be given freely. So if someone is pressured, coerced, or manipulated into saying a yes, that is not consent. The second thing is you must be informed. If someone isn't fully aware of what they are agreeing to due to lies, deception, or lack of understanding, then that's not consent. Number three, it must be enthusiastic. Now, this one is yes. I hope we can relate to this. It must be enthusiastic. If someone is hesitant, silent, or unsure, that is not consent. It must be ongoing. So consent for one thing doesn't mean consent for everything. It doesn't mean consent for everything. Yes, let me say that again. It doesn't mean consent for everything. And consent given once doesn't mean it applies forever. Consent can be withdrawn anytime as well. So if someone changes their mind, their no must also be respected, even if things have started already. Is it getting a bit tough to understand now? I think when it comes to this, it shouldn't be so hard to really grasp the situation. But surprisingly, a lot of people find it difficult to understand that this is very possible, and in fact it happens all the time. So let's talk about what the law now says about consent. So every country has laws about the minimum age at which a person can legally agree to sex, and engaging anyone below this age is actually considered statutory rape, even if they said yes. I hope that's very clear. I mean, even if a child says yes, that is not consent. That is still statutory rape. We have to talk about this because I've seen so many cases where people argue and say, oh, but the child wasn't complaining, the child wasn't saying anything. Yeah, but that doesn't count because children can't give consent according to the law. The law also talks about the incapacity to consent. So if someone is under the influence of alcohol, drugs, unconscious, asleep, or mentally incapable of making decisions, they cannot legally give consent. So this brings to question, who are the animals, permit me to use that word, impregnating people who are mentally disabled and on the streets? Who are those people? We really need to start cracking down on perpetrators like this who just go around being wicked and inhumane to people. So let's go ahead to talk about consent and relationships. So being in a marriage or relationship does not automatically mean consent all the time. Spouses and partners still need to ask and respect each other's boundaries. So this is where marital rape and the argument of marital rape comes in, because what makes you think because you have gotten married to someone, you have the right to the person's body all the time, 24/7, even if they say no? That's not humanity. That's not respect for our rights. Yes, that's literally being very, very wicked. The fact that we cannot acknowledge that marital rape does exist in many parts of the world, even in places where it is not recognized by the law, we still need to know that marital rape is a thing and it happens more than we can know. If consent is obtained through threats, blackmail, or intimidation, it is legally invalid. So when this is why when talking about sexual harassment in universities, it is important to understand if consent is obtained through threats or intimidation, which happens a lot in universities. So you hear lecturers say, oh, if you don't sleep with me, I'm going to give you an F on your course. That is intimidation. That is a threat. And especially for people that you wouldn't really know why their grades matter so much to them, but it does. People like this would have no choice but to give a consent which is actually legally invalid. So why is this a topic we're talking about on Valentine's Day, for Christ's sake? It's because consent is really and truly about respect, care, and boundaries. If you truly love someone and care about them, their comfort and consent should always come first. So anywhere you are, anywhere in the world, I hope you remember this, and I hope this is something you take all through your journey in life. I also hope that we start advocating for consent in our safe spaces, in our discussions with our friends, in our comments on social media, because trust me, there's a lot that we are seeing these days. We can't afford to be ignorant and uneducated about what consent means in the eyes of the law. So that brings us to the end of the Women in Law podcast today. I hope this conversation helps you navigate consent and awareness and respect for people. If you found this episode valuable, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe for more content on the Women in Law podcast. Till I come your way next time, bye. Happy Valentine's Day.